Okay, so hello everybody. Welcome to the Voice of Women in Innovation Network. We are very happy to have another session today with Dr. Shara Cohen, and we'll talk as usual about women. We'll talk as usual about innovation, and in this particular session, we'll talk a lot about STEM as an important industry, actually, which is we have talked a lot and we have heard a lot. We have basically read a lot how difficult has been for women to get involved into STEM and to basically once they get involved, for sure they thrive, but still there have been barriers. And Shara is one of those who has done a lot in her career, in a lot in her life to make a change and make big strides in this field. Elisa will help me now share the bio. So I'm going to introduce Dr. Shara in a bit. So Dr. Shara, first of all, welcome. She is the founder and CEO of Moms in Science and Women in STEM Network. From lab bench to global network, my journey building pathways for women in STEM is her topic for today. She will share her journey, but while she's sharing her journey, basically she will talk a lot also about some of the barriers, what made her basically get into this kind of journey. What has been the challenges that women, but also moms, face basically in STEM, and which is very similar to what we are talking together about innovation. She's a scientist herself, an entrepreneur herself, and then a social impact leader dedicated to advocate basically in STEM, the diversity in STEM, a former biomedical researcher, lecturer with over 100 peer-reviewed publications. She went on to found Euros Shicon, one of the first global independent life science event companies, which she exited in 2016. In 2005, she created Moms in Science to support women balancing scientific career with family responsibilities. This initiative has since grown into the Women in STEM Network, a global platform offering networking, mentorship, training, and recruitment to close the gender gap in STEM. Recognized internationally, she was awarded the British Empire Medal in 2024, New Year's Honors List for services to women in STEM. Today, she leads this network with the vision of building the world's largest online community for women in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Shara, welcome. If you can stop sharing the screen, Elisa. And first of all, thank you for joining. Second of all, thank you for doing all this work, all this important work for women in STEM. And before you start, right, and sharing more of your journey, I can't not ask you about what was the trigger for you to do all this, create this initiative. There is always a trigger in our lives. And was it because you were a scientist yourself and you saw the challenges that you were facing as a woman and you wanted to make a bigger change for other women? So was it related to your personal journey, or was it something else, like a trigger event that you said, hey, I'm gonna do more. This is not only about me now.
Sorry, that's a very interesting question. I'm actually going to talk about my journey and how I came to doing it. There's a sort of, I'm going to tell you about that. I don't know what the actual trigger was, and it I think it was more of a journey, to be honest. I became pregnant, so I had to think about my career differently. Then I um, looked at what was going on, so I thought maybe I should do something about it, but it was sort of on the back burner, and then it sort of grew. So there were several sort of points in my journey, actually. It's a good question. I've never thought about that before, but I will talk about my journey. That's exactly what I'm going to talk about, actually, how I got to where I am today, how I got to doing what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. So we'll talk about that a bit more. And I will think about that after the meeting if there was a specific point. I can think of a few points that did make me think, this isn't quite right. Something needs to be done. But at those points, I didn't actually do anything. So I think what has to happen is you have to have the right moment in your life. Also, something haven't spoken about, but I think is very important, is that you have to do something like this, or to go out on your own, or to do something that people might say, why are you doing it, or that's a bad idea. And in fact, just to be an entrepreneur, I believe that you have to have a good support around you, because everyone's going to say, why are you doing it? That's really stupid, or and I'm very grateful that my husband was always with me, supporting me, and in fact worked for my companies. I've always been the major wage earner, and he's brought the kids along to help me breastfeed and things like that. So I had him supporting me. So that's just something that I'm not including in this, to have a good support network around you, because you really are doing it by yourself anyway. It's all you're doing it by yourself. So it's good to have people who are not naysaying you. But with that said, I can't answer your question. I don't know.
Yeah, we will discover during your journey, and I agree. Doing it everything yourself is kind of a bullshit. We know that, right? You need to have a support network to do all the things that you are doing. Shara, the floor is yours. Please feel free to share the
Lovely. So I
screen.
will share my screen. If you could just confirm you can see my slides, because I've got 3 screens and sometimes I share my calendar. So let's just make sure you
Yes,
can see
we do.
my slides.
Yeah.
Lovely. So I've just got to get, oh, my computer's gone a bit. So so thank you again very much for inviting me, and letting me talk about myself. I don't often talk about myself, so it's a pleasure. What I'm going to do is share my journey as a woman in science, and how that journey helped me build the pathways for women in STEM. Um, uh, and how it's and what it is now, essentially. So let me share my first slide. As I say, we're talking about me today. So this is me. This is me in the 80s. It's right at the beginning. Me in my early career. I'm in my 20s, so yes, I'm over 60 now. And my aspirations at the time were very straightforward. I wanted to be a hardcore scientist. I wanted to get a professorship early. I was doing everything early, on track, fast, fast, fast. And that was all I wanted to do. It's all I thought about. I worked very, very hard. And the next slide is me now. That's me, my husband, and my 3 children. And I'm not where I thought I would be at 60 plus. I'm on a completely different path. I'm still working a lot. I can't see me ever retiring, but I didn't get that chair. So I'm going to talk to you about how I went from here, the very naive, innocent, hardworking, all I want to do is become a professor, to here, which was a very different journey. So as I say, I didn't get that professorship, and then my career took a very different path. Um, my So right at the beginning, my early goal was to become a mainstream scientist, to change the world with my discoveries. And I did everything right. I got my PhD at Cambridge. I went to New York for a postdoc. I came back. I worked at the Kennedy Institute of Rheumatology. I became a senior scientist. Then I became a senior lecturer, and I was applying for chairs. I was on track exactly as I planned. And at one point, I was even in the running to become the head of my institute where I worked. But, and this is one of those moments that we were talking about, I was applying, I was, I've lost my train of thought now. I was running to be head of an institute, but I was told very directly that I would never be appointed because I would probably give up and have children. And that was one of these pivotal moments for me. It felt like I was banging my head against a brick wall. Now, this was in the last millennium. This was in the 90s. Things are different now, but even in the 90s, you couldn't say that. You couldn't say you can't, you'll never get the job because you're a woman, essentially, is what he was telling me. But I felt like I was banging my head against a brick wall, pushing for a promotion that seemed impossible, no matter how hard I worked. And at the same time, that I was applying for the chairs. And at the same time, I got married and I was pregnant. So that did stop and make me think. It made me ask, what did I want? Did I want to carry on fighting against the odds? I was choosing to have a family. I always wanted to have a family. I always wanted to have children, and I wanted to be the best mum and the best scientist and the best everything. And I had to make a choice. You know, can I be the best mum if I'm working all the hours pushing for things that I might not get? So yes, it was a self-fulfilling prophecy. I did step away from academia, and I had children. But I never, you know, if I had been given the opportunity to be the head of the lab, I would have had children, been the head of the lab, managed it somehow, probably had a nervous breakdown by the time I was 50 because I was doing everything and there was no such word as work-life balance at the time. So it did force me to make those decisions. I realized I couldn't continue in academia in the same way whilst also being the kind of parent I wanted to be. So I decided to build something that would fit around my life. I could not afford to not work. I needed the income. Most of us do. I didn't have, didn't come from money. I didn't have money. My husband had no money. So what I did was I set up an independent life science company. It was the first of its kind, and my husband worked with me. And when the children were very young, he would bring them to the event. So he'd pop in and let me know when I needed to breastfeed and slip them in for a little while. So I worked, my whole life was worked around the children, and so was my husband. So it was very privileged that I could do that. It was sort of the right time. The internet was coming in. I could not have done it without the internet. Um, so I set up the company. And as the children grew older, I became less visible and more focused behind the computer. And this is quite relevant. I had staff managing the operations, and I was known as Dr. Cohen, not Shara. And people didn't realize that I was a woman. When they finally met me, I knew that they thought that I was a man. And I did wonder, what would the business have grown in the same way if people had known that I was a woman? And I do not know the answer to that, but I always am behind the screen and I always am Dr. Cohen on emails, and people don't know. So during that time, I noticed something very important, that many of the women who were at my events and were my contemporaries started to drop off and they were leaving science. They were moving into pharma and they weren't progressing. And I noticed that with my events. And the men were moving ahead and becoming professors. And some of them, my contemporaries, when I was a senior scientist, all the women were dropping off and all the men, that some of them were not that good, were moving forward. And this was the leaky pipeline that people were talking about, that I was seeing. I'm not sure if that's my next slide. Let's see what my next slide is. Yes. So that is the problem that I saw. And this is a problem that is global. There are 23 million women in STEM globally, but women are 2 times more likely to leave their roles. So it's not just that I notice it, it's an actual fact, and it's a fact now. So it was at this time that I decided, whilst the conference company was running, and it was quite well known and we had a lot of people coming, on the sidelines, I set up Mums in Science just as an extra. It wasn't to make money. It wasn't really, didn't have any main goals. It was essentially a networking community that we set up for women in science, but also parents in science. And the idea was to create a space where people could share their experiences, support each other, and balance their careers. So it was just a sort of a networking group. So I set up in 2005 when I had the conference company. We started networking events, and it sort of happened in line with the conference company. So everyone who came to the conference knew about Mums in Science, and they sort of fed each other. So that's how and when it's set up, and what it's we'll come back to that. So what Mums in Science does is it does similar events to this. We run approximately 2 free events a month, and they address the soft skills that women need in the workplace. So, for example, and these have CPD accreditation, and the Royal Society of Biology are very good to us, and they give us these CPD points, and other people do as well. And the purpose is to help women be more employable and to build confidence. So as you can see, already Mums in Science is coming away from mums and parenting to address all women, which is what we are doing now. But the core of Mums in Science became these events. So for example, how to be seen by senior management, taking control of your career. So that became the core of what Mums in Science did. Then another thing happened to me, and it's really about my journey and how I made the choices that I did and where I came to where I am, is what I'm talking about today. I had a cancer diagnosis, which is all long gone, all fine. It was very smooth. I did what the doctor told me. I haven't got cancer anymore. But when I had the diagnosis, I decided to sell the conference company because you go through a lot of treatments and it's very quick. So I sold it to my major competitor. It was very, very nice. Thank you very much. It was my first exit, which is great for an entrepreneur. But I didn't stop Mums in Science. I carried it on just as a vanity project to something to do, and also it was valuable. People were getting value from it, and it evolved. Let me just go back to this slide because I'm not in the right order. Yes, so I sold Eurocycon in the slide before. Yes, Eurocycon, I sold it, and then we started running more of those events, and we had some major challenges that were technical. And in 2022, it evolved and we incorporated as a company. And in 2024, which was last year, I received an award from the King. I got a medal from the King for this work and for some cancer work, but it was mostly for the women in STEM work. Now, I say this not to show off, although I'm very proud. It was very good. It was really nice to go and get the medal. And yeah, it was good. I'm not going to deny it. But it really did make a difference. It was another turning point. Nothing had changed. I've been doing Mums in Science for how many years? Many years, over 10 years. Nothing had changed at all, but I got a medal for it. And suddenly I was being recognized. And with that recognition came credibility. And after the medal, it became easier to be seen and to be taken notice of. And so it was it was just after I got the medal, actually, that I decided to create the Women in STEM Network. Is that the Women in STEM Network? Right. Well, yeah. So in 2025, just after the medal, I decided the Women in STEM Network, which is a global platform for all women that work in any aspect of STEM, and I can talk about that forever. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the journey, but I'll talk about the Women in STEM Network later. So because of the medal, possibly because of the medal, we have had a bit of investment in the Women in STEM Network. We're getting members, and we're moving forward. So why does the Women in STEM Network matter, and what is it? So essentially, globally, around 23 million women work in STEM. And as I said before, women are twice as likely to leave STEM roles compared to men. And one of the reasons is lack of systemic support. And that systemic support is what I found was missing in my journey and what I continue to see in others. So we are building something bigger. The Women in STEM Network is not just for mums, it's for women in science, technology, engineering, and math, created by, No, we'll talk about that later. It is created by women for women. It's we have 60 ambassadors around the world, in all different countries, from Africa to the Americas. We've got people in Vietnam, like in lots of countries. We've got people around the world who are ambassadors. We've got over 60 ambassadors. We've got more than 23,000 people engaged with us. We've got sponsors. We've got some early investment, and we're preparing a full launch in the coming years. So what I want to do now is that is essentially how I got to where I am, and what we're building, and why we're building what we're building. So I want to now talk to you about what we're building, and what it is, what the Women in STEM network is, and what I envisage it's going to be, and how our ambassadors help. So at the moment, the network offers a number of resources right now. We run regular events online, everything from skills workshops to community discussions. We're publishing books that address career development and personal growth in STEM. We've got a library of guides, tools, and resources on topics from self-advocacy to navigating career transitioning. And importantly, we're building a community, and that is the foundation of the network. We're building a space where women can connect, can share knowledge, can mentor each other, and know that they are not alone. I go to many of the meetings that we run, and I listen to the questions that people are asking, and they are experiencing very similar issues to the ones that I was experiencing 40 years ago. And it astounds me. It absolutely astounds me that things have not changed. They've not changed at all in certain areas, and they've changed massively in others. I mean, as I say, without the internet, I couldn't do what I'm doing. But people are still facing systemic issues, and issues with work-life balance, and confidence, and just banging their head against a brick wall for that promotion because they're not being seen. And they are the things that we address. So I'm keeping an eye on the time because I'm aware that I've got 7 minutes left.
No, we are okay. Don't worry.
You got it. Okay, fine. So because I'm just talking. I'm not sure what order I put my slides in. So, so the Women in STEM network, the idea that I have is probably different from what we will build, because once we have the money to build what we're building, we will get lots of focus groups in to help us to find out what the community wants. But essentially, it will be built around 4 hubs. We will have a networking hub, which will be a global community space where women in STEM can meet and collaborate and support each other. We do that a bit now, and that is essentially what Mums in Science did in the past. But Mums in Science owns a Women in STEM network, but the Women in STEM network is separate. I just need to make that clear. Women in STEM network is a whole new thing. Then it's going to have a mentorship hub where we connect experienced professionals with those at earlier stages, but not necessarily. And it will build supportive relationships to make a difference. When I say not necessarily, I think everyone can be a mentor, and everyone needs a mentor. Whatever stage you are, I think you have something to offer. And also, we could all use some help. So it's not necessarily people with early stages who will be getting mentors, but we'll sort that out later. And then there will be a careers hub that will offer tools, advice, and opportunities to help women to re-enter or pivot within their STEM careers. And we've also had a lot of recruiters that are interested, because obviously not obviously, but many companies want to show that they have a DEI initiative, and they help marginalized communities, and they want to help women. So there is a sense that we will be able to get a lot of recruiters on board to support us. And the hub structure will be designed to provide the systemic support that so many women have lacked, and which I myself struggled to find. So so that's what we're building. I'm going to look at my slides now to see what I've missed. I think the next slides just talk about how some of the things that the hub is going to do. So we are focusing on skills development, early opportunities. Yep. I've said that. Oh, hang on, I'm going backwards. Sorry. Yes. Core to the platform is our networking and mentorship. Um, a lot of things that come up in our events are talking about self-advocacy and confidence and also personal branding. So we're putting a lot of emphasis on that now, especially with our writing and the books that we're putting out. So we will talk about that. And also there will be a lot in our library about leadership and influence. And we're also looking at that sort of thing now. As I've already said, the most important thing is to create a supportive environment. At the moment, I meet once a month with all my ambassadors, and they are just amazing. They do giving me all their time for free because they all believe in this project. And our members who aren't ambassadors are the same. They communicate with me a lot because we want to get this going. So whilst I say that we have a lot on the website already, which are books and we've got a lot of tools on there and videos. We're building up a video library. What we have at the moment is not what we intend to have. We are building a global platform which is going to be robust and have what the community needs. And to do that, we are essentially fundraising right now, which is what I usually talk about all the time. All I'm talking about is fundraising. We need your money, and I talk to sponsors and I talk to investors and also members. So we are looking for founding members. I can talk about what founding membership is later if anybody wants to know, but essentially anyone who becomes a founding member now, their price will be fixed because you're not getting the full network right now. You're getting the build, but anyone who's a founding member will be involved in the build. You'll be part of our focus groups telling us what you want in the build. So that is my last slide. So to say, and yes, I've got perfect time. I love being on time with my talk. So just to finally say, when women in STEM succeed, everyone benefits because not just the individuals grow, but industries will thrive and society will advance. And there's many articles to point to the fact that that is true. And I've written many white papers to say that if you have diversity in within the boardroom and within the working space, you will succeed. So my message today is very simple. We're building this together. The Women's in STEM network is not about one person or a team. It's a global community that we're building. We're not that's it, actually. I was going to talk about becoming a member if anybody wants to become a member, but you can ask me about that. But that's all that I want to say. So that's how I got to where I was to where I am now. I'm 62. I have to think about how old I am. Sometimes I think I'm 63. I'm getting to that age where I really am not as quick as I used to be. But I'm still going, and hopefully I will have this network up within the next 5 years. And it all is down to membership and money right now. So shall I stop sharing?
Yes, please, Shara. Thank you very much.
I
Okay.
probably rambled a bit because I wasn't very, but I hope that was all right.
No, look, thank you for sharing your journey. It's important to understand a little bit what you have done. I'm going to ask you questions basically, and some of this maybe you mentioned in the presentation, but just to bring out this kind of in a very simple way for all the audience here, right? So, first of all, right, what gaps did you notice in 2005 that you found moms in science, and how do you think these gaps have changed since then?
What I very clearly remember actually when I was running these events that there was a woman. When I was a senior scientist, there were four of us, two girls and two men. And there was me and another girl. She was so good. She was way better than me, and she knew all the papers, and she was very mousy little I don't say that in a mean way. She was very quiet, but she knew her stuff and she was dedicated, and science was her life as well. And then there were two men who were bold and spoke loudly, and everybody knew who they were and they were confident. And what I noticed was the rubbish, really terrible man became a professor very quickly, and she disappeared. She went into big pharma. And I noticed in with my events, all the people that I knew. When I was running the events, my people that I knew would come because I'll do genetic events or immunology events. They had to come. And the people that I knew who were my friends were not coming anymore, and the men were, and they were getting on. And that's why I started Mums in Science, actually, because I thought, well, I actually left mainstream, and I left because I was a mum and I was dedicated, and I did never ever thought I would leave. Um, so that's what made me start Mums in Science. But I never intended it to be a business or money making. It was really just a networking thing so that people could talk and find out what the laws were and things like that. It never intended to become this. That wasn't my intention. I
And
can't
how
remember
have
what your question was. That your question? Sorry.
yeah, you answered the first part. How have you seen these gaps have changed, right?
How
Kind
has
of
it changed? I
over
don't
20.
know, you know. I can't. I don't know. I really don't know because first of all, I'm not in mainstream science anymore, so I'm not living it day to day. But I go to the events that I run and I listen to people um, who are talking about the same issues that I had, and it I think what's changed is awareness. People are aware that you have to listen to women and or marginalized people, and that they do have a place. And people talk. There's a lot of articles about saying women should be on the board because when you have women on the board, people see things differently and they have a different approach. And it's in all the articles now, and you read it where it wasn't. In the 80s, it wasn't there. There was laws, there were still laws, but no, but they were well, but nobody's from what I can tell, it's not really being implemented. You know, I'm an NED. I've got a, and now this sounds like I'm being this is not sour grapes in any way, but I've been an NED twice. I've got a medal from the King. I've got a big career, blah blah blah. It's really not easy for me to get on board, and I keep questioning why. Why am I not on the boards when the men are? And but I can't say that. I can't say, well, you've got men, you should have me. But you know, you see it, I see it. So and when I was a senior scientist, there were more women who were professors and who were doing well. They didn't have kids. They were sacrificing part of their lives. Um, and I did too. You know, I gave up mainstream science. So they you had to make a choice, and I had to make that choice. And I didn't really think that I had to make that choice until the choice came. Now I think there's a lot more things in place. You know, there's maternity leave and paternity leave. I mean, I'm talking from the UK now because every
Yeah.
country is very different. And in America, I know, you know, you have 2 weeks maternity and it's horrendous. And
Yeah.
in the UK, so for me, it's not about women getting a lot, it's about evening it up with men. You know, if the men have paternity leave, it means the women don't have to do it all. And it's about being even. I don't think women should be better or worse, right? You just even it up. So I think the laws are changing in that way, but I think I can talk about this for a long time. But I can only see it through the eyes of my children. I have three girls, and they are in their 20s, mid 20s. And the people that they mix with and the men it's more about the men and how they see it, because it's the men that are going to, if it's the men that are rising and the women aren't, it'd be the men that will have the power to push the women up. And it seems to be that it's more even now, and they have more of a sense that it's even. It feels to me in the UK, in the UK, in the 20s, in the people in the 20s, that's what I'm feeling. But my girls tell me that it's not like that because they're not looking at their contemporaries, they're looking at getting the jobs.
Mm.
So I really don't know how it's changed, to be honest. What it changed for me was the internet. As a woman who was trying to set up a career, who had a baby, a toddler, I could not have done it without the internet. I remember pushing the buggy with a newborn baby, talking into a dictaphone and sending that tape by email to a PA to do the work that I couldn't do because I was taking the kid to nursery. And it was all done on a shoestring. I had no money, but it was done because of emails, and I could work at any time. And I used to work in cafes. You know, people talk about J.K. Rowling working in a cafe. Well, I was doing it for her. You know, we were all these people my age were sort of doing these weird women. So I was doing that, and I couldn't have done it, and she couldn't have done it without her computer. You know, because she was I think she was a single mum, wasn't she, with no money. And so, you know, the internet has been absolutely revolutionary
Yeah.
for part-time work and working when you want. And it used to be in the day that I would queue my emails to go out on a Monday because I didn't want people to know I was working Saturday. So now nobody cares. You work whenever you work, you can queue when you're. So so I don't
And
know.
I think
I don't know.
no, and then I think AI right now is kind of making that
Mm.
even better, right? You can replicate yourself basically through AI agents and remote work, in particular after COVID helped this. Of course, there is not every profession in STEM. You can do it through remote work. And I wanted to ask actually, uh, do you see specific STEM fields where balancing motherhood and career is more difficult than others? Because STEM is broad, right? Kind of there
Yeah,
is
yeah, yeah,
coding, there
yeah,
is lab, there is science research in the
yeah.
lab,
And they're teaching.
biomedical. Yeah, there
Yeah.
is a
Yeah, and engineering. Well, you know, yeah, but it is, as you say, it's wide. So you know, somebody who's on a well, I can't think what we call it, you know, an engineer who's on a project, you have to go in and you have to be there at certain times. So it's a very, very broad question because it really depends on the rules of in that profession and in the company that you're working in. I can tell you that the Institute of Physics is exceptionally good for women, and they always have been. So in the field of physics in the UK, um, but if you're a medic, which is also STEM, you know, you have to be there. If you're a GP, it's more flexible. Apart in my day, a lot of women went into hematology. It was more female focused because you could work more part-time. I don't know why that would be. So, you know, but so it's too wide for me to talk about, to be honest, because STEM is too wide. But you know, and you have teachers in STEM. So teachers obviously lends itself to parenting better. Working in a lab as I did, um, to be honest, I cannot see. You know, there were experiments that I did where I had to go in at 2 o'clock in the morning, um, and you know, those experiments would have had to have been done, but I was very young and didn't have children. And when, you know, if you follow a normal career progression, by the time I was a senior scientist, I would not have been doing those experiments, you know.
yeah.
So.
But have you seen employers' attitude towards flexibility, career progression, for mothers, basically, and women in general, has evolved over 20 years?
Yeah,
Your interactions with the members.
I do see it, and I do. There's so much to be said about this. It's not just employers; it's also the laws, and I'm talking UK here because I'm in the UK. So the laws have changed, and they're much better, and employers are more aware. You do have this. I've spoken to women who are joiners. You know, joinery is like wood stuff. And I've spoken to one person in particular who found it very bad. So she set up her own company and she's a female joinery company. And now all the women in her company have very good benefits. So I think a lot of women are reclaiming the space like I did. I thought I can't work in how it is. And so I'm going to work how I want. And create a company where I can work around it. So it's possibly more about doing it for yourself, and the people who have done it for themselves creating that space for other people rather than the actual institutions that have a way of working changing the way that they work. And I do see that they are changing, or they talk about the change, or they want to do the change. I talk to a lot of recruitment companies who say that they've been employed to recruit people who are of certain marginalization. I'm not a big fan of positive representation. You might be shocked to hear. I don't believe, not positive discrimination. Positive
Mm.
representation is good, but positive discrimination. I think you should have the person who is the best at the job in the job, or the person who is right for the job in the job. My issue is that a lot of women are right for the job or good for the job, and they're not being seen, or they're being marginalized because they might have not just family or caring roles. It's not just about mums, it's about women, the way they present themselves, which I'm understanding now from the events that I'm running, is that women need to learn more about how to say, I did this. And I've had to learn that as well. In this talk, a lot of this talk has been saying, I did this, I did that, and I've never used to be like that. And I've had to learn how to say things like that. And men do that naturally. And I don't want to be sexist. I think they're taught it somehow. I don't know what it is, but I've totally gone off what I was talking about. I'm sorry, I don't know what you asked me. I've got so much to say. What did you ask me? Sorry.
It's a bit of lack of confidence and kind of used to do things, being a doer, and not talk about your kind of showcasing your achievements. And I think we were raised a little bit like that, and we were raised to shut down basically ourselves sometimes, and all this kind of comes with that. Um,
Oh,
one
let me
question.
tell you something. Sorry. This is something, and I told my husband that I quote my husband a lot, all right, with this one thing. And I told him yesterday that I do this. When we were first married, my husband was on the phone to his boss. It was before he gave up and started working for me. And he was on the phone to his boss, and he said to his boss, I did this. And he hung up the phone. And I said, why do you have to tell it? I mean, it was nonsense. I don't know what he did, went for a cup of tea. He didn't say that, but he said all these silly little things. I said, why did you tell him you did all that? He doesn't want to know. And he said, if I don't tell him, he won't know. And I thought, oh yeah, and you are not seen. Now, I think as a boss, I do see everybody. I think, and I try to, but I probably don't. And it is true that the loudest person is heard. And then I remember in one of my team, I had a girl who was very loud and very needed to be seen. And it irritated me because I thought, you above everybody else, I'm listening to you. But I did listen to her. And I did do what she told me because she did speak louder, even though I knew what she was doing. And it's not because she was a woman. I'm just saying that, it could have been a man or anything. But, that is something I learned from my husband, the man. So anyway, sorry, I interrupted you. Yeah.
Uh, Elisa, go ahead.
Yeah. I have also a question following up this. Also, like, what would be your recommendation for the young generations that are entering more in STEM? Like, to not be super loud, that would be irritating, as you mentioned, but also to showcase ourselves a little bit more. So, what would you recommend for us?
It's interesting. We've now got books and talks on this. It's not to be, I don't, I'm going to remind me what your question was at the end, because I've got a reason for saying this, but I might go off track. So basically, I do not like it when I see women, this is going to sound terrible, women acting like men because they think that is how they should be. Now, I know I said that I listened to my husband and I sort of copied him now, but it came from me. So I do not think you have to be like a particular man or aggressive or full. You just have to be you, but more you. So you have to, I'm quite introvert and quite shy. And I've taken on an entrepreneur's job where I have to be seen. I have to give talks. I have to do things, and I have to come out of myself. But so you just have to be more you, but you do have to find some sort of inner confidence, and you do not have to be loud. You just have to be firm, and you have to know what you want. And once you know what you want, you need to find a path for it and make sure people know that that's what you want. And you've got to be firm and strong, but do not change who you are at heart, because you won't like yourself. And it's not true. And don't be, just be you, but more you is what I would say. Yeah. I've found myself. If I'd stayed in science, I think I would still be more, I don't know, I wouldn't be who I am now. I've sort of found my voice because I had to. Yeah.
Thank you, Shara.
Thank
One
you.
question. You were saying that kind of, and this is obvious from the data that women are twice likely to leave, STEM basically. Um, and w- from the mechanisms that you have created, peer-to-peer support, mentoring, networking, whatever, training, what have you found that is helpful for them mostly, right? Is it like peer-to-peer support or colleagues or other women who are in the same jobs helping them basically because they have gone through that? Is it is it is it the power that kind of a boss has probably when it's a woman? Is it, I don't know, like what are the mechanisms that
I
you believe are the
think
best to help them stay there, progress, and feel comfortable, kind of not feel like overwhelmed?
it's a good question. I don't think I can answer that properly because we are at the beginning. So I've been running Mums in Science for, I don't know how, 20, 30 years, I don't know. But Women in STEM Network is new. So although we have got the mentorship programs and the hub, and it is new and we're building and we haven't got everything set up right. So I don't think I can answer that scientifically accurately, but I can give you my opinion on that from what I've seen. And I would say that and I've found this also from being a mother and being somebody who was quite quiet and isolated, and I like my own company. So I like to find things out for myself. I don't really talk to people about my issues, my problems. um I found that when I became a mother, when I became a mum, there were groups for mums, and I thought I don't really want to go, but I'm going to go because I'm for my kids, because I want a perfect mum, want to do it for my kids. And I went and I found them useful because they will talk about things that's happening with you, but you don't realize it's happening with everybody else. That my kids this, that, oh my God, my kid's doing that too. And it's the same with any group, I think. I think when you've got camaraderie and people who are doing very similar things to you, you can talk about it and you can realize that you're not alone. Even if you are, you think you're self-sufficient or you like your own company, if you are part of a group and you find out everyone's having the same issues, you can talk about how they got over them, or how you got over them together, or at least you've got somebody to talk to listen to. And I think the group connection, the community, is what's most important. It's what my people find important with my network, and it's certainly what I found what most important. And especially that the Women in STEM network is not just, it's a global network. So it's not just people around the world, it's people of different ages and in different areas. And we can still find that we support each other because you've always got somebody who knows something about what you're talking about.
What changes do you believe should schools and universities make to encourage more women, more young women to pursue STEM? Because I feel like sometimes it's because they see their moms or they see the others, and I see a tendency jumping into social impact and all this kind of stuff. And maybe it's because you kind of see others, or you yourself has suffered through some sort of discrimination, or you see how overwhelming it is, and there is this tendency going to social sciences or going to social impact and doing great job there, but how can we encourage them go pursue that? Is it schools, universities? Can them do something more?
I get asked this a lot. I get asked this about there's four things. There's schools, there's universities, there's the institute that you work at, and there's society. And there's all these places you have people who need to come in and people who drop out. Now, and these are such big questions. So I'm looking at the time, I don't know how long I've got, but there's four different areas. There's getting girls to do science at school. There's getting girls STEM, getting girls to do STEM at university, getting girls to carry on with STEM afterwards in the institutions, and the overarching society perception of women. So if I was going to just talk about one of those, I would talk about the perception of women in the world, and specifically in science. and also what science means and what STEM is. So when you the media, which I hate, if you look at how women are perceived in the media in science, if you look at how scientists are perceived in the media, STEM, people in STEM, they're geeky, they're not fashionable, they're nerds. Why would a woman want to go into that subject? You know, so I think the way that STEM is perceived initially would put anybody who is trying to fit in off. Now, you do find that the majority of women in STEM are not the women who wanted to fit in or needed to fit in. They're the odd ones usually. And that's possibly because, you know, society is telling you only odd women go, you know, you've got to push against, you've got to be pushing against things already to be doing. And I'm talking about me. I was 1 in 30 people in my maths class at school. I was, you know, because I don't know why I didn't care. So I think you've got it everywhere. If you look at the Big Bang Theory, which I really hate and love at the same time, it's funny, but the caricatures in there for people who work in STEM are just outrageously caricature and not real. You know, so you've got an issue with society to begin with, that a scientist is a nerd, right? Not trendy. It's not a trendy thing to be a scientist. So, and you've got women who think who may want to have families, who may not. But women who may want to fit in, they may not, thinking, why would I want to go into that? Then you've got the bias in schools. Women, it's well documented for many years that girls who go to girls' schools will do very well and outperform boys in other schools. So if you're not given the competition of a boy in STEM, you will do well in STEM. So girls at girls' schools do well in STEM at the school level. Then you go to university, and you've got the same bias that you have at schools, exactly the same. And it goes on. I can talk about this a lot. I think there's many levels. I don't think the onus is on anyone in particular, but I think if we were going to put it anywhere in particular, apart from society, which we can't change, it would be the institutions. Once you come out, once you've done all that hard work, once you've gone against all the odds at school, or maybe you've gone to a girls' school and you think you're going to do well, once you've gone to university, which is mixing, you've fought the boys and you've fought the lecturers and you've got your degree, and you know you've done that, and then you've gone into the institution and you still find that there are barriers in the institution. That's where it needs to change, because that's where they're dropping off after they fought really hard to get there. And what they can do, there's a lot that they can do. You know, they can look at their my brain's gone on my words. They can look at their hours of working. They can make things a lot more flexible. They can listen to make sure that they hear women, because women speak differently. They can make sure that each person is heard in the same way and not just listen to the people who are louder. They can put and treat everybody the same. So I'm not talking about doing things specifically for women, but putting everybody on courses to make sure that there's equity. There's a lot.
It is holistic, right? Kind of. So school, university should do their best, basically retaining and encouraging women to do that. And I agree. We've seen the data. Women are doing basically better sometimes in maths at earlier ages, basically, in science. And then there is a point basically after even high school, that kind of the interest becomes lower and lower, and we have to navigate why, right? Kind of that happens. And so school and education, then is of course the institutions that in different countries are acting differently, but kind of giving more empowering moms in particular, because it's that stage where kind of it's important basically for women, where they kind of define to take a break or find a career which is more helpful for them or enabling them to do both. And then it's employers, corporates, right? Corporates or whatever are the institutions, universities, and all this, creating policies to retain the bright talent. As you said, it's not about discrimination, it's not about the quota here, it's about keeping the bright talent. Why? Because in innovation, we say, hey, if you have women participating in innovation teams or decision making, basically we get better products in the market, and we get better basically also in terms of the economy benefits of it, the business benefits of it, and all this kind of stuff. So as soon as the business understands that as better, and of course it's also the support system, right? Kind of is the male colleagues, is the women colleagues, basically how they support each other and don't let the rest of the people drawn, right? Kind of when they see that they can't make it. So how we create this support system, not only between women, but also between male colleagues to help. Thank you, Shara. Shara, we are getting to the end. I'd like you to spend this last minutes. Any key takeaway you want the audience to basically get out of this? So when
I
it
just
comes,
want people to join. If you're a woman in STEM, have a look at our network. That's all I'd say. Have a look at what we're doing and become a member, or join our LinkedIn group or our Facebook group, or just sign up, because really all I'm doing at the moment is trying to get members. That is my whole raison d'etre. We get members, then we can build a platform, then we're going to have this massive community together, and hopefully Voice of Women in Innovation will come on the platform as well, because the idea is to have hubs of all the different groups. I've spoken to lots of different groups around the world and the idea is to have you all on the platform, to have you all on there. So that's looking to the future, that is what I would want. Hopefully
yes.
we would stay in touch, and I would say to anybody watching this, have a look at womeninstemnetwork.com.
Yes, of course. Me and Shara have been talking, and we will try to support each other and see how we can collaborate more in this. Thank you, Shara. Thank you for sharing your journey, and let us know for any things that kind of basically our members can benefit and all this kind of stuff, so we can really help this network grow. Its innovation is part of STEM in itself and vice versa. So all the women that we have in the network are doing science, basically. And innovation is both an art and science. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for basically attending, and thank you for the ones who were watching by far. So we will have another speaker series next month, basically, and we'll let you know very soon, and we'll launch it in our LinkedIn. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you.